All right, everyone, welcome to the regular town council meeting, town of Cave Creek, Arizona, Monday, December 20th, 2021. I think we probably need to take the roll, see how many's.
Councilmember Roy. Absent. Councilmember Morris.
Present.
Councilmember McGuire.
Present.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Diefendorfer.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Mayor Bunch.
Here, and Councilmember Royer, I will be letting people know where she's at in the announcement portion of the public meeting. Well, this is public, but the one where people show up. Okay, let's see. An executive session will be held for the purpose of council discussion, consultation with, provide instructions to the town attorney and town manager regarding ongoing legal matters related to non-motorized trail and Canyon Ridge Estates, case CV 2019-052824, pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes, sections 38-431.03, A3 and A4. Do we have motion to move into each session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the regular town council meeting, town of Cave Creek, Arizona, Monday, December 20th, 2021. I'll always like to name Ernie. Mr. Weber, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Under announcements, Councilmember Royer is not here. Her daughter has had some surgery, and she's helping out with that in the, I don't know, young, maybe newborn. I'm not sure how new.
Newborn.
No, I'm told newborn. So, and on the other side of that, announcements, since most of y'all probably won't be here at the end of the meeting, I'm going to take this opportunity to wish everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and turn it over to public announcements.
We have no numbers.
None. All right. And public, I meant call to the public's what I meant. Good grief, I can't read. Okay, town manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I know we have a long agenda, but this is the time of year that we give a summary report of the 2021 year in review. And I'm just going to hit the highlights that really are the things that the public have been aware of or should be aware of. And it's a very long list, so I will read as fast as I can.
Y'all been busy, and so have we.
Yes, it's been a very busy year, productive and really good things. So the town of Cave Creek's mission, vision, and value statement are our guiding principles. They set the direction for the town and how we conduct business. Our mission is to support the community by effectively managing public services and fostering our unique Southwestern ways of life. With this in mind, we proudly look back on how we accomplished our mission through our many successful collaborations among Cave Creek town employees, our town elected officials, other government agencies, and our residential and business community, all while navigating through the second year of the COVID pandemic. I'll start with our overall financial condition. We continue to see growth in our sales tax, in part due to recent retail developments over the past few years. Council has already approved the development of a strategic financial plan for utilities, and we are in the process of a utility rate study and are conducting a review of our utility capacity fees and other utility related fees in order to ensure there is adequate funding for our utility operations and for financing of our critical utility infrastructure capital improvements. In November of this year, Rounds Consulting Group presented their financial and economic outlook for the town, which indicated we are financially strong, and with continued good fiscal management, the town will be able to cover our current services as well as the new fire and emergency services. We've made significant improvements to the development of our annual town budget, guided by the Government Finance Officers Association's best practices and adopted council financial policies. As a result, For the second year in a row, the town has been awarded GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its fiscal year 21 budget. The town received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by GFOA for the Cave Creek's fiscal year 2020 comprehensive annual financial report for the 23rd consecutive year in a row. With the aid of a consultant, the 2021 general plan was updated and unanimously approved by the mayor and the town council in 2020 and was ratified by a vote of the general public at the special election held in May of 21. The general plan was overwhelmingly approved with 1,016 votes in favor and 578 opposed. The 2021 general plan was nominated and awarded Best Regional General Comprehensive Plan for a jurisdiction with a population of 49,999 or less. And this is our award sitting right here. It's a big accomplishment. The planning department processed several proposed zoning text amendments, updated the technical design guidelines for landscaping trails. Staff helped coordinate events for each of the first 6 recognized local landmarks as part of the pilot program that was approved by mayor and council at the last meeting in 2020. Staff coordinated with a public-private partnership to expand and improve the public parking area serving Spur Cross Ranch Conservation Area. We worked with Maricopa County and our internal public works staff and a local contractor, Larson Excavating, to increase the amount of available parking spaces. We coordinated multiple pathway connections within the historic town core with the aid and cooperation of commercial property owners, including Fernando Maldonado, owner of Retablo Stores and the Mercado development. Although the COVID pandemic reduced a number of special events, the town had another successful Cave Creek Rodeo this year. Our planning director, as a volunteer member of the Cave Creek Rodeo Days, helped organize and administer the 2021 Cave Creek Rodeo held in May, the 28th, 29th, and 30th. And it's important to note that more town staff members than in any previous year volunteered to help run a successful event. In 2021, the Building and Fire Safety Department permitted over $33 million in new construction project valuation, which is a result of issuing 567 new permits through November of 21. Those permits included 89 new homes, which added over 370,000 square feet of new residential space to the community. And the new more than 30,000 square foot micro hospital received its certificate of occupancy in May this year, allowing it to open its doors and begin serving our community. The brush drop-off events were held in February and March and were sponsored by the town to encourage residents to reduce the fire danger to their residents and businesses. The town used resources from all departments to staff the successful events. In public works, there were several road improvements completed this year, including the microsurfacing of Cave Creek Road from the south town limits near Sentinel Rock Road to near Scopa Trail. They helped with the Spur Cross parking expansion and Ocotillo Road drainage and pavement repair. There was a response to the flood cleanup from the August storms, resulted in washes running and debris ending up in our roadways. There were several engineering studies and design, including Desert Awareness Park, Galloway Wash Flood Improvements Study. The town's Phase 2 pedestrian safety study was presented to council in October. The town was approached by ADEQ about an open aquifer protection permit we've had since 1992 on the town's Phoenix mine site property, which has been closed out. And then we come to utilities. This is a much longer list. We've had a continued year in 21 full of challenges, changes, but also improvements for the utility department. Staff has worked with our attorneys and elected officials to update our water policy and amend the town code to better manage our valuable water resources. We mapped out all of the certificates of assured water supply to help with tracking of the town's CAP water accounting. We worked to complete a new subcontract for 386 acre feet of Central Arizona Project non-Indian Agriculture Water, NIA. This new water allocation is intended to help replace a portion of the town's municipal and industrial cap water that's being transferred to Desert Hills Recharge. We obtained ADWR water storage permits to allow the town to recharge unused cap water at Phoenix and Cap Recharge sites. The permits will allow the town to recharge unused portions of our M&I and NIA cap allocations to generate long-term water storage credits. And staff obtained approval of the water storage agreements with CAP to allow the town to recharge water at 3 CAP recharge facilities. We started a project to evaluate the existing wells in the Cave Creek system. The first phase will be review the ADWR well records, and the second phase will involve physically inspecting and testing well casing for the sites that would appear to be worthy of rehabilitating. The as-built records and mapping tools continues. The physical cataloging and digitizing of the department's record drawings was completed last year. So the new electronic maps integrate site information, aerial maps, notes, images, locations of valves, meters, hydrants, et cetera, into one system. The new system has a web-based interface. Staff also spent a lot of time updating the wastewater system mapping, locating and inventorying water meters, and linking our Cassell billing account data. While it's not 100% perfect, the new system is already helping our staff more safely and efficiently operate the town's utility systems. In calendar year 2020, we formally created the Operations and Maintenance Division. And now we've added new utility administrative staff that have focused this year on setting up the online maintenance management system. We're using the new mapping created by our GIS system to push assets into the maintenance management software system. It allows for much better tracking of ongoing and required maintenance. We had repair of the Carriage 2 booster site. Phase 1 design services for the new potable water supply connection with the city of Phoenix is ongoing. That site that we've acquired will be able to supply both pressure zones 1 and 4, which are the pressure zones extending east to the connection point with Desert Hills and up north to the Neary booster. The water system will still rely on the Neary booster site to provide fire flows, but the interconnect site will be designed to allow for future upgrades if required. The site will also have a 1 million gallon storage reservoir and will accommodate the location of the CAP 4 booster site. The SCADA supervisory control and data acquisition system allows for monitoring and control of sites remotely. The system also provides staff with alarms to warn of issues at the sites. The current project is in its 3rd and final phase of construction. This past year, staff worked to upgrade the PLCs and cellular modems for the CAP booster stations. This significantly improved the reliability of a critical system for the town. We installed the new Mission SCADA system at Rancho Manana Lift Station. The Rancho Manana Lift Station improvements, 90% of the town's wastewater passes through the Rancho Manana Lift Station. This past year, staff completed several significant updates to the site. The new Mission SCADA system was also installed to allow staff to better monitor the operation of the site. The most significant upgrade to the site occurred when the original pumps were replaced with new high pressure units. In our wastewater collection system, we had several repairs. Following the large summer monsoon storm event, staff worked with the contractor to clean and video inspect the collection system. By the end of 21, 8 line repairs should be completed on that system. In water distribution, through the end of November, staff has had to deal with 19 water main line breaks and replaced 32 service lines. In many cases, staff found that the service lines had broken in the past, but only a repair band was placed to stop the immediate issue. Staff has been working to replace the lines entirely. This adds to the length of time needed to make the repairs, but it helps to ensure that we won't have to come back in the same spot for many years to come. The distribution staff took advantage of an overnight shutdown of the Neary booster station and replaced a broken 8-inch valve in the Cloud Road water line. And they've been using a contractor to change out over 100 meters in December with new units. All of the replaced meters will be tested to verify their accuracy and determine where replacements should be focused. Now on to wildfires, fire prevention, and fire emergency services, another huge undertaking by the town. We all know that on May 17th and again on May 30th of 2020, the town experienced two devastating brush fires that were so intense and fast moving. The Department of Forestry and Fire Management took over fighting the fires by air attack, along with automatic aid from fire service organizations throughout Arizona. In December 2020, the town negotiated an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Scottsdale to allow for Scottsdale's Deputy Fire Chief Jim Ford to work directly with the town to provide assistance in evaluating the current conditions, develop a plan to address the future fire emergency services for the community, and recommend an approach to bring the town's fire service into the automatic system. And boy, did that take a lot of work by a lot of folks to make this happen. So here is a summary, and they're just highlights again of everything that actually was accomplished this year. I'll skip to February, where Cave Creek applied for and was issued an official fire department ID from DFFM that will allow the town to be recognized as having an official fire department. This allows the town better access to new IGAs and possible future grant opportunities. The town commissioned an initial community-wide wildland fire survey to identify and engage the local residents' knowledge of wildland fire risk and prevention efforts. We developed a web page that provides specific information related to the establishment of defensible space, plant and fuel management, and additional safety recommendations by the residents of wildland urban interface communities like Cave Creek. To help address the upcoming risk of the 2021 fire season, the town marketed and hosted its first brush and fuel reduction program. And in March, we initiated a program to conduct free individual residential site inspections to assist residents with evaluating potential wildfire defensible space conditions. On March 15th, at the town council meeting, the elected officials approved a resolution that directed town staff to begin taking the actions needed to become a recognized member of the Regional Fire Response Automatic Aid System, which is administered by the Central Arizona Life Safety Council. The council also approved resolution R 2021-07 that officially entered into a cooperative agreement with Department of Forestry and Fire Management. And that new IGA helps to address the potential need for increased community protection and the ability to access additional wildland fire expertise and resources. By April, at the town council meeting, there were preliminary findings of the fire service evaluation for Cave Creek. These included initial estimates for cost, broken down by startup, capital expenses, stations, vehicles, et cetera, operational categories for staffing and training. Daisy Mountain Fire District agreed to enter into future discussions and assist with the development of a comprehensive all-hazard emergency service for the community. By May, preliminary appraisals obtained on 3 properties were complete so that we could determine where to locate the fire station. And Cave Creek Fire Service efforts presentation at Whispering Hills annual HOA meeting was at the Hollins Center. That was the beginning of multiple meetings from homes, HOAs at the Hollins Center, out for the public, and continued community outreach throughout the summer and into the fall. By July, council determined the vice mayor, town manager, and deputy fire chief would represent the town at the official contract discussions with Daisy Mountain Fire District, and their selected representatives were their fire chief, board president, and other district staff members. In August, the town council meeting, the council took actions to approve the lease and purchase of the existing facility for future use as a primary Cave Creek fire station. And August 24th, the town met with rural metro officials to begin discussions on transition and to communicate the offer from the mayor and council to allow rural metro to continue to serve the town from the current fire station facility rent-free through December 1 of 2020. By October, the council approved resolutions that updated memorandum of understanding with Daisy Mountain Fire to pay for the hiring and initial training of up to 15 new firefighters and identify additional items to be addressed in order to meet a January 3rd startup date for community fire and emergency services. October 16th was the initial presentation and discussion with council and the public regarding the financial outlook and economic outlook for the town in order to cover the expenses for fire and emergency services. And the final presentation by the Rounds Consulting Group with their findings was presented November 22nd. November 29th, Deputy Chief Ford retired from Scottsdale Fire Department, and November 30th began his employment with the town of Cave Creek. And December 6th, resolution was passed approving the final IGA with Daisy Mountain Fire District to provide fire and emergency medical service within the town. Council approved the purchase of the new fire engine and the brush truck, and the official transition date for fire and emergency medical service will be January 3rd. We will also have the final purchase of the facility after the first of the year, sometime in January. And there will be a presentation at the next full member Central Arizona Life Safety Council meeting, most likely in January, to request official entry into the regional automatic aid system. And that's all we did. I left out a few things, but those are the main things.
Carrie, with all of the stuff that you highlighted there, and there were other minor things that, the ankle biting issues that come along in day to day. I'm sure everybody's tired. Motion to adjourn. No, I'm kidding. Thank you so much for that. Well, it looks like learn to read here. Non-action item 2022 local landmark project. Who's presenting that? Oh, I know. It's Cave Creek Kelly.
Well, howdy, everyone.
Hi there.
Greetings. Luke and I will be presenting on this one.
Oh, we're going to have the director of planning as well, Mr. Councilman.
Well, we had a 30-minute presentation with sets of music and a light show. But based on the last report, I think we'll just get right into the PowerPoint presentation that Kelly has put together for us. Just quickly to recap, as Carrie mentioned, last year, after many years of talking about different ideas and different ways to promote some of the areas in town that make Cave Creek such a wonderful place and a unique place, council adopted a resolution and recognized 6 initial places to be presented a bronze plaque and awarded into this program. And since then, we've been rolling out the program, culminating with recognizing the building that houses currently Oregano's across the street with the final plaque of the year. And I will kind of let Kelly take over from there as far as some of the behind the scenes of what went on this year, how we arrived where we are today, and what we will be coming back to council at the first meeting in January to ask for consideration of additional places to be added to the list and moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly.
Thank you, Luke. This project was born from an economic budget to help promote stimulation economically, but it also lives to honor a lot of the destinations in town that make this unique around the world. And what we saw was the first 6 destinations announced last December, and I'm going to breeze through some of what we did this past year. And then the public was asked to nominate destinations to be considered in the future, and some of that will be included here as well. The first 6 locations were Harold's, Big Earl's, Cave Creek Inn, which is now inhabited by Oregano's, the Hideaway, which at one time was Hannah's Chocolate House and has had several different renditions through there, Dairy Queen, and Carpenter's Trading Post. These are images of the plaque. They come to as an expense of about $500 each. And you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner, there's a little QR code on there that actually links people to a storytelling map. We hosted a plaque ceremony at each of the 6 destinations. We had a great turnout of building owners, business owners, coworkers, family members, neighbors, and all kinds of folks that came out for each of those. We had many of the local organizations come out to support those as well. The Desert Foothills Library and Caring Corps were incredibly supportive. And much of this was conducted along with the Cave Creek Museum as well. There's plenty of press that you can find this presentation online afterwards. This is only some of the press that was covered from the events, which included 20 Things to Love About Cave Creek that featured each of the landmarks along with several other destinations as well. And True West Magazine also published a great feature on the landmarks program. This is an image of the storytelling map. You can click on each different destination to get a historic description. And in addition to that, we're going to have this physical printed map, which is underway as part of the program's promise already. And we upload stories that are submitted by the public, and this can be ongoing throughout time. At each of the events so far and all year long, we've been collecting stories that are going to be uploaded into the map. This is the criteria. The main key 3 points that we asked ourselves were, are these destinations accessible and within the town core? Can you walk to get to them? Are they iconic? Is it a place that people already know about once you mention it? They know where you're talking about, and probably racked in some memories with their family throughout generations. And does it contribute to the town's heritage ongoing? The public was asked to email the program nominations, and the list you're looking at now is the list of nominated destinations throughout town core that were considered for the program moving into the future. Luke, myself, other members of town staff, and volunteers from the local landmark program, which include members of the Cave Creek Museum and other local volunteers, got together and had a discussion about each of these and asked ourselves the questions, those 3 questions. Is it iconic and part of town core? Does it contribute to the town's heritage ongoing? And is it accessible? What we're suggesting, or the top 10 that came of that conversation, are here on this last slide. And with that, it wraps up the local landmark program in 2021, and we hope to see it continue on strong in the new year. Thank
Now, if we can get the lights dimmed and the light, oh,
you.
disco balls.
Good job.
Nice.
Questions from council? Comments? Nothing.
All right.
Well.
If I could just thank a few volunteers, I'd like to thank Nina, Paul, Darlene, and Evelyn for their support, as well as the folks with each of the destinations who produced an event for each of these ceremonies. The community really came together for these. It was really nice to be a part of. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay, now I'm getting down to real current business. Consent agenda, which is approval of recommended town of Cave Creek Public Safety Personnel Retirement Board appointments. Number 2, acceptance of a deed of gift from George and Ellen Weaver for ingress, egress, and public utility easement from parcels B and C. And number 3, approval of December 6, 2021 regular council meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
All those, second, okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes clearly have it. General agenda item number 1 is council discussion and consideration of ongoing legal matters related to non-motorized trails in Canyon Ridge Estates, case CV 2019-052824.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a matter that has consumed our time for almost 3.5 years to include litigation through the risk pool, defending your position. You have a property owner in town that has a property without any resident on it, claiming that trails in the Canyon Ridge Estates are limited to pedestrian and equestrian use, arguing that non-vehicular use such as bicycles are prohibited. The HOA disagrees. You have disagreed. We've taken the position that the documents are clear, that those uses are authorized, and you've been involved in litigation. We currently have a decision by a Superior Court judge that we don't agree with, and nor does the HOA. Believing that the judge believes that the HOA has the limited ability to amend its operative documents to CC&Rs, and that you as a town have a limited ability to enforce the easements that you and dedications and plats that you've already recorded. We are recommending that you do authorize an appeal that's required by the open meeting law. We can't take a step like that without your authority.
Council questions? I guess we'll move right on to
Public comment. you have
public comment.
Yes.
Public comment at this time.
Brent Demmett,
I take this off for this.
Oh, hey, that is Brent.
We do.
Mr. Mayor, Town Council, my name is Brent Demmett, I'm 41580 North Canyon Springs Drive here in Cave Creek, Arizona. I'm in favor of you guys authorizing the appeal. I'll just say that outright. It's going to be obvious anyway. There's so much that goes on around these trails. You probably all know that by now anyway. It is the only connector that goes straight from Cave Creek to Cave Creek Cave Creek Regional Park. And out of that becomes so much. A big part of it is the C4 race. I'm also the president of Desert Foothills Mountain Bike Association. Mr. Weber over here, who led the Pledge of Allegiance, as part of that organization. He also helps put on that race. I'll just say he also does the majority of the trail work, if not all the trail work around Cave Creek, including the Canyon Ridge Estates trails and all around. But the C4 race is important. We haven't had it for the last 2 years now. We didn't have it 2 years ago because of COVID. We didn't have it this year because we were afraid that an order was going to come down and that there were going to be signs up saying no mountain bikes. Now, as it turned out, we missed it by a couple of weeks. We probably could have had the race, but because we couldn't have 300 people showing up to town and there'd be a sign that says you can't ride your bike on this portion of the race, we did not have it. Why is that important? People depend on that race. 300 people bring a lot of, they bring themselves, they bring their families, they spend money in town. They spend money on DFMBA. That is our major fundraiser. This race is our major fundraiser, and it has to have that portion of the trail to have the race. That's important because DFMBA turns around and gives that money in the form of trail maintenance. As I said with Ernie, we do all this trail maintenance and we use that money to do that. We're also the biggest benefactor to the Cave Creek High School mountain bike team and to the junior high team. I don't know if I have the right numbers, but I was a coach for 5 years. And in the 5 years I was a coach, we never finished worse than third in state. And once we won state, and I'll proudly say that one of my sons was an individual state champion. We've had a good success, and it all comes from people like Ernie, DFMBA, giving back to the community. It's not just a race. C4 is not just a race. It's a trail. That trail doesn't just bring people here one day a week for, one day a year for this race. It brings people all year round, all months, summertime. You'll find people out riding that trail. They start and stop from right here in Cave Creek. The majority of them start right here in Cave Creek. They go to local Johnny's. They go to Flat Tire Bike Shop. They go to El Encanto. They go to the Bermuda Triangle. Wherever they go, but they go, and they all do it because of that particular track that starts and stops in Cave Creek. As you've seen over the last 2 years, people are recreating in record numbers. If you've been to Spur Cross lately, you see that they expanded the parking area there from, maybe 30 spaces to whatever it is now. It looks like a spare lot at Disneyland when you go up there. It's a massive parking lot and it's full, and it's full. I live up on Spur Cross. I'm there every weekend and it's full. Shutting down these trails is going to push more of that burden up to Spur Cross. It's just a fact. If you have two points and one of them gets shut, they all have to go to the other one. There's going to be a massive increase in traffic just going up to Spur Cross because of that. So, I've mentioned what the trails do for DFMBA. We're prepared to give back. Not only are we prepared to give back, but IMBA is prepared to give back. IMBA is it's IMBA. It stands for the International Mountain Bike Association. It is the parent organization of the Desert Foothills Mountain Bike Association, of which Ernie and I belong. They are the #1 advocate worldwide for mountain biking. They have 2 missions. They produce trails and maintain trails, and they advocate for access. In a 1.5-hour conversation with the head of their government affairs from Washington, D.C. last week, he has given their full weight to supporting this issue. Having said that, DFMBA and IMBA are prepared to go forward with an amicus brief if this appeal is filed. An amicus brief is important because I think 60 to 65% of winning appeals depend on an amicus brief. So we're prepared to do that. It's also important because we can go into issues that is not narrow. I should mention I'm an attorney, by the way. Maybe I didn't mention that. An amicus brief does not have to meet that narrowly tailored aspect for which the appellant would have to file. You guys would have to file a very narrow brief that addresses only issues in the exact issue. Amicus brief can do that and do so much more and really add the flavor and put some meat on the bones and explain why it's so important to have this for all the issues I've mentioned. You know, just the trail access, shifting the burden, health and welfare of people in the community, economic health. So that's all. Thank you.
Eileen Wright.
Good evening, Eileen Wright, Cave Creek resident. When I first looked at this agenda item, I found it very confusing. It was short of some information that has now been brought forward. But what was the ruling exactly for those trails? And why do we think that if we went against them again, we would come out as the winners? We need to have more information because for one reason, it's very expensive. Would Mr. Sims be doing this for us? Would it be the risk pool? Would it be an outside attorney? There's a lot to this. But one thing I thought was very interesting, and I'm going to quote from this action item. It says, staff recommends that the town council consider directing legal counsel to an appeal and take the necessary action to resolve this matter. Why would the staff be doing this? The staff does not give recommendation on legal matters, yet that's what this says right here. I found that kind of contrary to what we really believe in. And what's the justification for filing an appeal? Do we feel that strongly that we can win? What was it that made us feel, which would be good, but that we could win this, that we could win this at all? It is costly and it would be nice to get more information on this before we go forward on another legal matter. Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
No more? We're back back to council. Please.
Motion to direct the town's legal counsel to file an appeal to continue legal proceedings related to non-motorized trails in the Canyon Ridge Estates, case CV 2019-052824.
Second.
Councilman?
Trails are a really important part of Cave Creek. And I think the decision that was handed down so far was incorrect, and it's imperative that we pursue this so that our trails don't get piecemeal and taken apart. So I'm in full support of the appeal.
Not sure who had the second.
Well,
One of you.
I'll do a quickie. I think that this is an issue that deserves new eyes reviewing the context of the issue. I think that new eyes might come up with a more appropriate decision than what we have before us now.
Councilman Silva?
Yeah, I think it's imperative that the town move forward with this, working in conjunction with the homeowners association. I believe they acted properly And it's hard for me to believe that this is being tested, not allowing for bicycles on a trail. It's what our community is about, just like it's about motorcycles in the spring, just like it's about equestrians throughout the year. And 100% behind it. And I don't believe it's going to cost that much money, especially working with the homeowners association and others, as Mr. Demet said. So I feel quite confident that this was a bad decision after reading it. Not that I'm an attorney, but I'm willing to go forward and make sure that our trails as identified remain to be utilized by bicycles where appropriate. So I'm supporting it.
Councilman McGuire.
This has tremendous implications for all of our trails. Should we not challenge this, the use of trails throughout Cave Creek would be in jeopardy. I also want to speak to the issue that Councilman Silva brought up. This is seems like a very unusual decision. It's a decision that will be opposed nationally by people who want to have and use their trails. It is critical for Cave Creek to maintain the integrity of our trails. It is critical for all of us that we have defended defended something that is a national issue and that greatly impacts Cave Creek. And I think it is well worth the limited amount of money that we will have to pay. Thank you.
Councilman Morris.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. The trails are a signature feature of our town, and we've got to protect it. We got to protect the ability to manage the town's assets. It's a very low cost appeal with a high probability of success, so I'm in favor of it.
A situation where we have to, I've always said that people move here and like 90% of what's here and don't particularly care for 10%. And when they get established, they want to change 10%. The folks that are opposing this actually don't even live here, and they're opposing the trails, which are a big part of what the town of Cave Creek is, the open space trails and the enjoyment of the great outdoors in the Upper Sonoran Desert. This does have financial implications, so let's do a roll call on this one, please.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Diefenderfer,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Bunch.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Agenda item number 2, council presentation acceptance of the town of Cave Creek Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, placed on the agenda by the town manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to introduce Brian Hammerly. He's a partner with Henry and Horn, who's our auditing firm, who will be presenting the CAFR for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Brian Henry. I'm the CPA lead partner for your audit for the city or town of Cave Creek. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure if we have that available. Sure. Great, thank you. Well, thank you. While he's pulling that up, I'll just go ahead and get started here. So the thing you're probably most concerned about is, did you receive a clean opinion? This year's audit, you did receive a clean audit opinion, what we call an unmodified opinion in the world of accounting. We had no recommendations or findings, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report to you or any of your citizens. We do a separate report for your compliance with laws, contracts, grants, debt covenants, things of that nature. That report also received a clean opinion this year. I'm required to communicate certain information to members of government specifically. That information such as we had no disagreements with management. We did have some journal entries, but nothing that was not posted or recorded by town finance. So everything was recorded when requested. We do have to discuss significant transactions, and in my slides, when they eventually come up, one of the significant transactions that I'm required to discuss with you is the transfer out of the general fund into the utility funds, specifically wastewater and Cave Creek Water, of roughly $10 million this year in combination. This is a combination of writing off previous advances between those funds and current year cash requirements needed. This was approved under a resolution that town council had previous to June 30, 2021. But because it is such a significant transaction, we are required to communicate with you regarding that transaction. You did not have what's called a single audit. It's a federal audit of grant money exceeding $750,000 in expenses this year. However, odds are you will have one next year for your coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund money that you had received earlier in this year, earlier in July. So make sure you work closely with your attorneys and with us as well, as far as making sure you're spending the money for allowable purposes, because that will have to get audited in your next year's audit. So that's just an upcoming information for you. I believe, without seeing my slides, I think that is the majority of my report. So I guess I beat the slides. Any questions, anything I can answer for you?
Councilman Morris?
I wrote this down.
I almost did.
The town is in extraordinarily good position by my reading of this. I mean, extraordinary. And not only that, but the trajectory is even better. We are getting better as well as being in super shape. And all I know about is this town. You see a lot of towns, a lot more than we do. Where do we rank approximately against other towns in the state or wherever you've been as far as our financial strength and our financial management?
For the size of your town, I'm not really supposed to give an opinion on some things of this nature. My opinion really is supposed to be limited to where the numbers correctly stated, were they materially correct, and they were. But just going across the state here, you're right in line really with the other cities and towns. A lot of cities and towns actually had a very good year despite the pandemic. Sales tax have been up, as Carrie mentioned earlier. And there's been positive outcomes for most municipalities in the state of Arizona. So the fact that you have the same positive trajectory is a good sign, and that you don't really have anything that bucks the system as far as the other municipalities we audit. I hope that answers the question. Sir?
Well, not exactly, but it's good. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll get there.
He was looking for some attaboys for the town of
I
Cave
know,
Creek.
yeah.
Lines.
Because they should be forthcoming. Let's see here. I don't even see any public comment on this one. Let's go ahead and go right straight to a motion.
I'll do it.
Motion to accept the Town of Cave Creek Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, for fiscal year ending June 30, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes clearly have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Yep.
checking us out and giving us a grade.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you, sir. Agenda item number 3, council discussion approval of resolution R21-26, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the town of the opioid settlement and release agreements with Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Ortho McNeil Janssen Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Janssen Pharmaceutical Inc., and with distributors McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, and AmerisourceBergen Corporation. How did I do with those names? That I
Maybe when we get the actual authorization, you could just sort of quickly say we've already said this. This is the final step in the town taking action so that you can receive funds that accrue from the opioid settlement. You've already agreed to documents within the state regarding how the funds can be allocated. And if every jurisdiction does what you're about to do, it increases by about 10 billion, the amount that will be released to the nationwide for settlements. And so it's in yours and your fellow jurisdictions incentive to approve. So tonight, you're actually now approving the actual releases. The defendants would not put more money on the table unless they figured out a way to get as many of the plaintiffs to release. And so they're working with you, cities and towns, to accomplish the release. 2 documents you have in front of you will authorize the mayor to sign the 2 releases and send them back to the National Senate.
Question for council? Councilman McGuire.
Is it possible to have any kind of rough estimate of the amount of money this means?
I think I've done it for my 9 cities. I think you were 91 million. Was it not 91 million? 91,000.
You know.
Give or take, give or take.
Give back the award.
We need
Heard the first answer.
we need someone to check his billing.
I mixed up the 3 decimal points. 91,000.
All right.
Should have seen the clerk, I mean, the manager.
Any other questions from council? All right, there is public comment on this one.
We have no speakers.
We had no speakers. All right, back to council for a motion, please.
I'll make it. Motion to approve resolution R 2021-26, a resolution of the mayor and town council of town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute on behalf of the town the opioid settlement and release agreements with Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Ortho McNeil Janssen Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, Janssen Pharmaceutical Incorporated, and distributors McKesson Corporation, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource Bergen Corporation.
Second.
Comments, Councilman Morris?
None.
None. Council? All right, this one apparently has some kind of financial thing. We're a little confused about just exactly how much that is, but we ought to go ahead and do a voice vote anyway.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Diefendorfer,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Mayor Bunch.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Let's move on to agenda item number 4, which is council discussion approval of resolution R 21-27, adopting the official 5-year multi-hazard mitigation plan for the town of Cave Creek, placed on the agenda by the town marshal. Town marshal?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, thank you for your time. Before you is the multi-hazard mitigation plan. Last came before you 2015. This is the new and improved 2021 version. Hazard mitigation plans required by FEMA to receive certain pre-emergency mitigation funding. It also helps with certain flood control funding as well. Plans reviewed and updated, like I said, every 5 years. Oddly enough, there were 2 jurisdictions I chopped out of it last year. I can't tell you the reason. I'm sure it was really good though. But all the other jurisdictions are required to approve it in order to get funding. It has been gone through the vetting process with FEMA already. FEMA has pre-approved it. Now, in order for it to take effect, all jurisdictions have to agree to it.
Question from council? We have none. We have public comment on this one.
No members of the public wishing to speak.
No comments. We're back to council.
I will make the motion. Motion to approve resolution R 2021-27, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, adopting the official 5-year multi-hazard mitigation plan of the town of Cave Creek.
Second.
Councilman?
No comments.
Councilman McGuire?
It's a good idea to augment the services of our town marshal in keeping the town safe.
Anything else from council? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes go to have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're on to agenda item number 4, council discussion, possible approval of the town of Cave Creek Planning Commission Code of Conduct. And I put this on there, but Mr. Councilman's going to talk to us about this.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, thank you. Sometime last year, I believe, during a meeting, Mayor expressed the interest in adopting a code of conduct specific to the planning commission. Town council has a code of conduct. That document was actually used as the starting point draft for what was tailored for the planning commission. I solicited input from two planning commissioners, the chairman and also Commissioner Breckner, who are here this evening, to get to a document that is suited for the planning commission. As you're aware, state law and the town code governs the planning commission, the formation of the planning commission, its duties and powers. The planning commission is essentially responsible for conducting public hearing on all matters related to land use and zoning. So their role in the town and in the things that the town does is very important and very significant. So to kind of further along the recognition of what it means to be on the planning commission, per the mayor's direction, we've put this document together for your review. Thank you, Mayor.
Council? There are none. Apparently there's public comment on this one as well.
No members. wishing
We
to
have
speak.
none. We're back to, well, let me go ahead and do this. And the motion to approve the town of Cave Creek Planning Commission Code of Conduct.
Second.
All right. And the reason I asked for this, there was some behavior that was questionable. And since the council has to have a code of conduct, it just seemed only fair that our boards and commissions did as well. So that was the impetus for coming up with this. Did I use a big word like that? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Agenda item number 6, council discussion, possible approval of Town of Cave Creek Advisory Committee Code of Conduct.
Mayor, members of council, the previous item was a little more specific to the planning commission. And so that language is not included in this, more generic for any other advisory committee. The only active advisory committee we have at this time is the water advisory committee. So, but this would apply to any other committees if you ever created one. God help the staff if you create more committees, but if you had them, it would apply to all other committees is the intent behind this other version of the code of conduct.
What was that editorial comment? I mean,
God
in the beginning of the meeting, you went over the few things that you managed to achieve this year. You don't
We're
have
busy
time for
enough.
more committees? All right. Did I ask for public comment on this yet? We have none. We're back to council for a motion, please. Well, I'll motion to approve the Town of Cave Creek Advisory Committee Code of Conduct.
Second.
Okay. Comment? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes clearly have it. Agenda item number 7, council discussion, appointment of 2 citizens to fill the vacancies in the planning commission. Placed on the agenda by the town clerk. See the deer in the headlights
Yeah.
look over there. It was
Mr. Mayor,
great.
we have advertised and received applicants for the position, and now we turn that over to council to interview and make the decision on who to appoint.
Okay, so
Mr. Mayor,
former Vice Mayor Sova.
I see several people in the audience that have their applications in. with-
That's probably a good idea to let
Yeah,
him get up
I
and talk to us
have
for a
them
minute. So
on
why
there.
don't, so let's just start in the beginning here. It's
Okay.
number 7, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Cynthia Driscoll.
Mayor Bunch, members of the council. My name is Cynthia Driscoll. For 35 years, I've lived at 40415 North 70th Street. So I've lived the history of Cave Creek's growth and development, raising a family, starting a business. I would like to see that future version of Cave Creek in another 30 years. And I think participation on the planning commission is a good way to further my interest and involvement in the town. As far as regulation, I have experience as a past member and president of the Arizona State Board of Physical Therapy Examiners. So our role in that position is to look at complaints against licensees by the state, review regulation and statute to make quasi judicial decisions about license behavior and activities. So I feel like that's good preparation. I understand open meeting law and executive session regulation and how it should apply to open meetings. And I also come to meetings with an open mind and can make independent judgments. So I'm a better listener than I am talker. And in what I viewed from the commission meetings over the past couple of years where I've listened in or participated is that listening is a key part of that, to understand both the interest of the community, but also to allow for due process for the property owners, both residential and commercial, who want to further the growth of the town. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Question from council for the applicant, any?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Former Vice Mayor Sova.
Ms. Driscoll, thank you for applying. My one question is, there's many controversial cases that come before the Plan Commission that are hotly contested, basically land use, density, so on and so forth. My question is, if you were personally not in favor of something that was on the agenda for the Plan Commission, and perhaps you were against it, just yourself, based on the facts that you've seen, how would you, or would you be, totally fair and impartial, honest, conducting yourself with integrity by looking and going through the presentation, knowing that you might not be in favor of it, that you could definitely make a decision based on the law, case law, and based on the individual's property rights, based on the parcel you'd be looking at and making a decision on. And if there's a large outcry, public outcry against it, how would you balance that? And could you make a decision such as that? They're not easy at times.
Mayor Bunch, Mr. Silva, two areas of experience in the past. For several years, I was a youth coach and referee, specifically boys competitive basketball, that had to deal with being fair and impartial, even in a community where you knew most parents on both sides and had to put up with the complaints and grief from both sides involved. And so again, it takes a willingness to make a judgment based on what you see, based on what you hear, read, and understand in the case of the Planning Commission. Likewise, as a regulator with the Board of Physical Therapy, we would have complaints come before the board that dealt with colleagues. And again, in a professional community in a smaller state like Arizona, you know a lot of your professional colleagues, but you have to be impartial and understand that your responsibility is application of the statute and the regulation for a fair outcome for the respondents as well as for the licensee. So it does take a degree of impartiality. I think definitely over the years and listening to the Planning Commission meetings, there's a lot of angst on certain issues, and they come back to visit the Planning Commission and or the council over the course of years, sometimes, in rapid succession, but sometimes issues circle back. And I think continuing to have a historical perspective as well as an eye for the future helps you balance those concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one up is, works better if I turn the microphone on, doesn't it? Next one up is Katya Kensel. Must have a copy of our agenda and all this stuff here, because you knew you were next.
I did. I'm usually prepared, quite prepared, as a matter of fact. It was good to see the code of conduct for Planning Commission and council upgraded, as well as the marshal's duties. That was really good thing. That being said, I would like to bring my skills to serve the town by sitting on the planning commission. I feel the current and returning folks have sat on this commission far too long. New blood is imperative, and especially adding fresh eyes with different experience and gender, I will add. I was a senior process engineer in the semiconductor industry, and I have a lot of problem-solving experience, much like Mr. Baxley, senior, has. And that brings a lot of experience in a group situation in problem solving. I've been active since 2002 in trying to preserve desert rural. I think y'all know that is where my heart is. And that is the heart of our general plan, is preserving desert rural. Any questions?
I would ask, without repeating it, the same question to you that I asked Ms. Driscoll. I don't have to repeat it. I'm sure you heard it.
I did, thank you. As an engineer, data-driven decisions are essential. And I dig for data. I remember the guy Ken, somebody with the windmill property. He didn't have his acreage correct on his building permit request. So that got corrected. He did not like me, but data is data. David, you know that. And so as far as impartiality, yes, data makes a decision.
No more questions from council. Thank you, Katja.
All righty, thank you.
I don't see Mr. Lamar here. The only attorney on the commission. Let's see here. Next one up is Clayton Miller. I figured that's who you were. You're the only face in here I didn't recognize.
Under 65.
Wait, are you sure you live here?
Yeah. Evening, everyone, council. I didn't particularly prepare anything, but I thought I'd give you just a little bit of background on myself.
Little closer to the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. But I have lived up here my whole life. I grew up just a little bit south of here. So, I know the community and I love the desert. Background, I work as a licensed landscape architect. So, doing everything from planning, high-end residential, commercial, parks, kind of all across the board. So I think, that's kind of what I would bring to the table a little bit, would just be, skills in that as a day-to-day job, as my full-time function. So on there. Other than that, I live over on Military Road. I just finished building my own house over there. So happy to, become a more, part of the community and help out where I can.
I'd ask the same question that I asked everybody else.
Anybody remember?
You've had time to think about it.
Yeah, right. I think it's an easy question to answer. Like, of course, you want to be fair, and impartial, whatnot. I could see in the moment, it would definitely be tough, I think, especially if you personally not, agreeing with it. But I think that's kind of the position you're signing up for. Like, you have to be fair and, to both sides. If you've got a landowner that's, it has its own rights and town as well. So it's a easy answer. I think it's a difficult situation when you're there, but I would aim to be fair.
I just got a comment. I know everybody wants to be fair. That's the easy answer. The question going beyond that is, but will you and can you be
Yes.
fair? Not
Yes,
wanting
I
to
think I
be,
could.
but to stand up to, a segment of our population that's against something that's on the agenda. And as long as you look at the, as I say, the laws, federal, state laws, our ordinances, are you willing to subject yourself to do what's right? Not wanting to be fair, but
Right.
will be fair.
Yes, I think I could. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Reg? Somebody help him up.
Mayor, members of council, Reg Monachino, Cave Creek resident. I believe that my years of experience on the Planning Commission will help the commission make the best recommendation it can to council. I'll be pleased to answer any questions you have.
If you could answer my original question that I asked of Ms. Driscoll.
Sure. Based on the data and being fair, you can't please all of the people all of the time. But the decision has to be, is it in accordance with the ordinances? And is it in the best interest of the majority of the citizens of the town? Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least is Mr. John Patton.
I'm a little taller than Reg.
Yeah, you're taller. You need to raise that up.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so far.
John Patton, I'm a resident of Cave Creek. I've been a resident for 10 years. I've lived in Cave Creek 10 years. I feel this time and experience places me in a position to understand and appreciate the history of Cave Creek and the residents' desires to maintain the lifestyle while understanding the needs of the town and the rights of property owners. I have learned the history and events of the beginnings of the town and respect the efforts to create and maintain a rural oasis in a growing metropolitan atmosphere. Decisions and recommendations need to be addressed considering residents' desires, the needs of the town, the rights of property owners while working to maintain the rural lifestyle. This must be done in a fair and open process with the within the established zoning codes and building codes of the town. This will allow for providing a reasonable and logical recommendation to the town council for matters presented to the planning commission. I've been on the commission 4 years and I feel I've done this to this point and would like to continue the service to the town on the planning commission. You want me to answer your question?
You've had too much time to think about it, but
Oh.
yes.
Do you want to modify it?
No, go ahead, please.
I've done it, so.
Yeah,
Yes, I
no, you can
do it.
answer it. Yeah, I would ask you the same
He
question.
said he's done it.
I've done it.
No, but if you wanted to say it again.
No. Being on the planning commission for 4 years, there have been circumstances where I have not agreed
Right.
personally. But given the laws, the codes, everything the petitioner met, the responsibility, and you couldn't have a reasonable decision to say no.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so. At this point, there's a couple of ways we can go, but I think I'll just go ahead and Mr. Sims, won't you go over the most equitable method from equitable and legal method?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I've had some discussions with councilors concerning adopting a process that didn't sort of encourage someone to nominate as rapidly as possible to be right at the poll and be the first one voted upon. That has a tendency the mayor would acknowledge someone on council to get the first nomination, have the vote. Perhaps there's only 2 nominations and the other, in this case, 4 or 5 never get nominated. There was a counselor who was proposing an idea where the council would rank order their preferences in private, give that ballot to the clerk, and have the clerk tabulate who had the most first and seconds, and then the clerk would identify who among these candidates were the ones most likely to get the highest order and have them be nominated first. The downside of that proposal was none of it was in public. And your code says you have to act on items with an A or I or a nay. And your code says the decisions need to be made in public. So therefore, casting that ballot to have the clerk read them would violate the open meeting law. So to avoid the incentive to have someone on your council urge a nomination as rapidly as possible, to have that person voted upon first, you could adopt this procedure. There's a number of people nominated. The mayor could call for nominations. You can nominate them all, or you can only nominate a few. Any one of you can nominate. It doesn't require a second. So once nominations are closed, then some number not greater than the number of applicants would be the person's nominated. And then rather than call for votes on the nominations, which causes whoever makes the nomination first to get that person voted first, you put all the names in a hat and arbitrarily just pick them out blindly. And then you would vote as the names are drawn. That disincentivizes the incentive to be the first one not to nominate one of your fellow citizens. So that would be the best. That would be compliant with the open meeting law. That would allow you as counselors to vote, and then you would vote until 2 are selected.
So everyone would get a vote on the first name drawn, on the
Yes.
second name
Yes,
drawn.
yes,
Everyone get, okay. All right, so we'll just open it up to nominations.
I'll make a motion.
No, a nomination.
Well,
Oh, you want a motion? Go right ahead.
I was going to make a motion regarding putting everybody's name, nominating everybody as a blanket slate.
Mr. Mayor,
Instead of doing it one by one,
typically a
nominate
nomination
all six.
doesn't require a second. This
Right.
motion would require a second and then a vote to see if you as a council wish to then nominate all candidates. So that is a motion, you correctly, that does require a second and will require a vote.
Do we have a second? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so nominations. Councilman Diefendorfer.
Nominate Clayton Miller.
Okay. Councilman McGuire.
I nominate John Patton.
You got one?
I nominate Reg Monachino.
I'm going to nominate Steve Lamar.
Okay. Okay, we got 6. There's 6 of us. In the interest of fairness, I will nominate Cynthia Driscoll. So let's put all 6 names in a hat. We got a hat? Oh yeah, we got a hat over there. No, there's a hat right there. Goodness gracious, she is on top of things.
That's my hat, Mayor. That's why I'm still here, not leaving without
You
it.
can't leave without your hat. No.
Check for lizards in there.
Steve Lamar.
Who?
Steve Lamar.
Steve Lamar. All those in favor?
Well, it depends. It's unanimous, yes. If not, you have to have a roll call vote.
Okay, all those in favor of Steve Lamar, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Mr. Lamar is on the commission.
Reg Monachino.
Reg Monachino. All those in favor of Reg, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. All right, voice vote.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Who'd you say?
Or do you want me to do?
Yeah, we need a voice
Oh,
vote,
sorry,
yeah.
Vice Mayor Smith.
How did I vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're voting now.
You're voting
You're
now.
voting now.
And,
On Reg, we're doing a
we got
voice
one
vote.
more
'cause
vote.
we-
Oh, okay, yes.
Councilmember Diefenderfer,
No.
Councilmember Sova,
No.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Regrettably, no.
Mayor Bunch,
No, fails 4-2.
John Patton,
All those in favor of John Patton signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay, well, let's do a voice vote on this one.
You're a tough guy.
Councilmember Diefenderfer,
No.
Councilmember Sova,
Yes.
Councilmember Morris,
No.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
I could probably yes to the whole group. That's one of the problems.
Yeah.
We got some good qualified people this time. Well, I already said 2 yeses. So as far as I'm concerned, I've done my yeses. No.
Mayor Bunch,
I'm going to go no, so we don't have a tie.
Cynthia Driscoll,
All those in favor of Cynthia Driscoll, see by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Mayor, question, if I may,
Yeah.
about voting. If one has voted yes or twice, you've cast your 2 yes votes.
No, we're each one is individual in this one, the way we're doing it. That was that other goofy thing we tried before where we tried not to hurt people's feelings, where we ended up with some kind of a convoluted system that, and there's no way to do this without bruising some people's.
So you could vote yes, in
Yeah.
theory, for all 6.
You could, yeah, and you'd be right, and you'd be right twice. What did we do? Oh, yeah, we needed a voice on
Voice
this
vote.
one, yeah.
Councilmember Sova,
Yes. No. No, I'm sorry. Yes,
yes,
yes. In the affirmative.
Councilmember Morris,
This is Cynthia Driscoll. correct?
yes, correct.
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Diefenderfer,
No.
Mayor Bunch,
Here we are again. It's 3-2, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes or no?
No, it's
So
4-1.
it's a 4-1.
It's 4-1.
4-1?
4-1, Mayor.
Oh, is it 4-1 right now? We're 4 yeses now?
Yes.
Look like we're there. 5. I hate this. No, we got both of them.
Yeah.
We're done. We're done. We got 2.
Yes, you're elected to.
Yep. All right. Welcome.
You want feedback?
All right, agenda item number 8. Council discussion possible approval of the job order contract with MGC contractors to replace inlet screen at wastewater treatment plant for an amount up to $215,654.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I actually do have a presentation.
Thanks, everyone who applied.
So the item for you tonight is a request to enter into a job order contract with MGC contractors. The influent screen at the treatment plant is what we consider the first treatment as flows enter into the plant. They go through a screening mechanism that actually removes things that could clog downstream equipment and et cetera. So the screen that's in there, they're trying to find a good photo of it, but we actually didn't have one. Next slide, Brian. So I'll show you an example. It's called a rotary drum screen. This was put in with the original construction in 2010. The unit actually sits in the wastewater flow. As the flow comes across it, it rotates around, and that vertical section is an auger. So effectively the material gets washed off, gets augered up and dumped into a screening dumpster. Next slide, Brian. So right now, the situation is that the drum was actually removed last summer by MGC. We actually had them come out to help us do some maintenance on it. It had failed a little earlier. So this is the condition that you're seeing. There's two channels. So right now we are manually having to screen the material. The problem is that the manual screen is a larger port opening. So it's allowing material to get into the plant itself. But I just want to give you an example of what we're dealing with right now. So the drum screen you're seeing is there on the right side of the picture that actually normally is sitting into the flow and collects, and then it has brushes on it that and spray bars that actually do knock material down into that hopper system. Next slide, Brian. So in looking at this, we went back through the history of this device. So in 2010, it was installed in the plant. There's actually records that in the end of 2014, not just over 4 years after being in service, the town actually had problems with this unit. Problems to the point where they actually worked with a local vendor. They removed it from the channel, brought it to the local vendor. The local vendor worked on it for a few months, was not able to get it fixed, and they actually had to work with the supplier and get it shipped back to the East Coast to actually get repairs done on it. So from December of 2014 through the end of I believe it was November of 2015, the unit was out of service and it was actually then returned to service. It was at that point just over a 4-year-old device, and it had failed for some reason and had to get repaired. In total, the town spent about $45,000 on that repair back in 2015. So in 2019, not too soon after I started, staff started seeing some problems with it. We thought it was just wearable parts. There's brushes and some other consumable parts that could get changed out on this. So we worked with the supervisor at the time. He actually placed an order for spare parts to get ordered in. But not soon after that, and actually after that supervisor left, we found that the deterioration, the damage to the unit was actually more extensive. To the point that when MGC took it out, we had to have material loss. Effectively, the support mechanism that was holding up the drums had failed. It allowed the lower bearing to actually get damaged, and the drum itself had actually lost about 1/4 of an inch of material on its bearing surface. So next slide, Brian. So we had actually staff thought that they had the spare parts to actually make the repairs. And again, just jumped ahead because I told you what we found out when we took the unit out this past summer. Because of COVID, the parts took a while longer than we expected. So we didn't get the parts till September from the vendor, and staff started working on the repairs. In April of 2021 is when we actually realized that this was more extensive of a repair than we could handle. We had MGC disassemble the unit completely and give us an evaluation. They started reaching out to some vendors, and they thought their estimates were approaching $75,000 in repair work was needed for this piece of equipment. So at that point, staff paused and we engaged Wilson Engineers. Wilson Engineers is a firm that does a lot of work for small and mid-size wastewater treatment facilities. So we use their expertise to evaluate the system and to also look at options. Is a rotary drum screen the best option for the town? And especially after we found out the information that what happened in 2015. They did the recommendation, and based on that recommendation, they're suggesting we move away from the rotary drum screen and we do what's called a rising rake screen. There's less of the equipment actually in the flow stream itself. These are a lot more reliable. They're more commonly used in the industry, especially in Arizona. Next link, Brian. And what they looked at was actually a 20-year present worth value on the equipment. So the initial capital cost is higher, but when you actually look at it in conjunction with things like maintenance requirements and reliability, energy costs, et cetera, over a 20-year lifespan, they're actually a less expensive piece of equipment, although you have higher capital costs. I'm not sure if the lower capital costs are what drove the initial bar screen or the drum screen to be installed. I suspect that might have been the case, but this is an example. Again, when you see the equipment, they're actually fully enclosed, but you'll see that the bar screen actually sits down in the channel, and there's a rake system that comes up and hauls the material up. and then gets compacted. So again, it's hard to see. There's some videos online that helps explain it, but it's a different mechanism rather than a drum rotating into it. You're actually just have a set of bars that are coming up and raking the screen material. So we're capturing the material like rags, et cetera, that gets into our collection system that will eventually damage some downstream components in that basin system. Next slide, Brian. So we're asking for, it was an unexpected request. So we're looking in the capital project. We've actually identified that we'd pause the funding that we had set aside for the CHIPS lift station repairs. Staff looked at that project and we think we can do a lot of the work needed at that site with operational dollars. So that was $150,000. We identified our capital program, and we're looking at other operational savings and capital savings to pay for this. But from a criticality standpoint, it's important to get a bar screen and an inlet screen back into the wastewater treatment plant. We did an inspection last year of the basins. The SBR basins, which are our main process basins, don't have much debris, but our sludge collection basin does. We actually have to work with a vendor, and we've actually put it in next year's capital request to have someone come in and vector that that chamber out to remove the material that's made it through to that process screen. We also were seeing things like plastics and stuff that should have been caught in the bar screen that were going all the way through the plant into our disc filter system. So it should not have gotten that far in the plant. So we do need to get this, and from a criticality standpoint, it's very important that we get this screen installed. Staff are asking to do this move forward right now, because we're hearing it's about 5 months for manufacturing just at this point, if we place the order today. Depending on how things happen coming forward, if we don't place the order, that time could stretch out further. So we don't want to delay any further. That's why we're suggesting, instead of waiting till next capital year and requesting new funds, to actually try to fit it in within this year's capital budget. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Was it the SO2 that wrote the other one?
No, it's hard to tell. I hate to do it, but when I go back and look at the records, I can't find good maintenance records on the piece of equipment. But it's really, there's one of the things is that the rotating drum actually has some support bearings underneath. The newer models from that manufacturer actually have pairs of support bearings. Ours only have single. That was one of the things when their technician actually came out and looked at the unit, they said that, yeah, he doesn't really see these that often because they don't use them that often, this specific model that we have. So yeah, the bearings, effectively the support bearings allowed allowed the drum to shift down, put the pressure on the main bearing, and as it rotated around, there's a bearing face, and those bearing faces started to eat themselves up. So that main shaft is fully damaged. So that's why part of the cost is you have to actually remachine that face. It's all stainless steel. You have to repickle it and everything. So there's a lot of damage done to it.
And this is the purpose of this device is to remove the liquid from the.
No, it's just a larger floating debris.
Okay.
And we do have a large ragging problem in the system right now. A lot of that's being captured and dealt with at our lift station sites manually by our staff.
Well, that's the disposable wipes.
Disposable wipes, which are not disposable,
Yeah.
not flushable.
Yeah.
They can be disposed of in a garbage can, but definitely do not flush them. We're seeing Clorox wipes and other things that people are trying to clean and disinfect areas, and they're flushing it, and it's coming at us. So this removes that material. That's the type of material that, if it gets into the basins, can clog downstream pumps, can cause damage. Again, we've seen some collection of debris in our sludge basin, so we have to get that removed.
Okay. Councilman Morris, I know that you've got questions.
Yeah. I mean, the first obvious one is, I would term this a catastrophic equipment failure. Why was it not caught? What kind of management techniques do we have to make sure that equipment that is not performing well is caught before there are catastrophic failures? I'm saying this from a position of having done this for 35 years, both well and badly, and there's nothing wrong with something bad happening as long as we correct the root causes. So what have you done? What has a town done to operate our equipment so we don't have unexpected catastrophic failures? And the waste system is rife with unexpected catastrophic failures. There's multiple over the years. It's a pattern of failure, I guess, that we just got to break. So why didn't we catch this? And
if it could have been prevented, what's been done to prevent things like this happening?
Well, it's a really good question. And, in this case, when the issue was first brought up, it was brought to my attention as being something that was just some consumable parts had wore out. We needed to get some new brushes and some other pieces. It went further than that. And the person who had actually told us that then left the town. So I couldn't go back. I couldn't find the history on it. Going back to just the general question on general maintenance, one of the things that we have done and Manager Direct brought up is, we did over a year ago create a maintenance group. Previously, the system operators, the supervisors of each system was required to also address all maintenance activities. It's hard to manage a treatment plant and do all maintenance activities at the same time without letting one ball drop. So we try to centralize that function by actually having a maintenance group. It's made up of 3 people that for larger projects, they can get stuff done. We also, council was also authorized non-contractual dollars. We bring in vendors to do works for all the wastewater pumps have actually been looked at and serviced by the vendors. We've done that twice now. So we're trying to do that on an annual rotation. We're adding all the information into the town's iWork online asset management system so that we can both track activities and actually forecast what work needs to get done. So it's a work in progress. This was, I would agree with you, was a catastrophic failure. When we assessed how bad it was, when MGC took it apart, I was, to be honest with you, shocked. I didn't realize how much damage could have occurred to a piece of equipment like that and the costs associated with it. It's basically almost a redo on the piece of equipment. So that's why we stopped and paused and engaged Wilson to say, if this has happened and this seems to be the second time it's happened, is it just poor maintenance activities or is this just a flawed piece of equipment? So that's why we said we want to have someone give us an evaluation of if that's the best way. They did evaluate another type of drum screen. I'm not going to say it's manufactured. It is not a good piece of equipment. They looked at another one, but then when you look at a long-term cost benefit, it's just these aren't the most cost-effective devices, and they are a critical piece within the wastewater treatment facility.
Well, I would just urge the town in everything we do is to focus on prevention, whether it's fires, or equipment failures, or all the other problems we've had at the lift stations. We just have to prevent problems rather than react to them. And I sent you that the 3 stages of maintenance, which is fix it when it breaks, which is where we are and where the town has been ever since I've been associated. Second is preventive maintenance, where you try to fix it before it breaks. And third is a predictive, where you actually use instruments and assessments to rather than doing every 5 years, you do it when the equipment needs it. But we really need to move forward on this. The second thing is about the form of this. As I look at this write-up, we're looking at an economic decision between 200,000 and 75,000. So the difference between that is 125, that you're really asking for 125,000. You're going to, if you have to fix it, it's going to cost you 75. To replace it is at 200,000. So we got $125,000 margin between those 2 options for putting a critical piece of equipment in there. Why don't we have economics on that? You verbally, you went through, it's better maintenance, it's other things. Where are why don't we have numbers on these things and payouts, which is the standard way that organizations make economic decisions?
The Wilson report was attached on the agenda, which actually gave that evaluation. So we actually had brought an engineer in to do that evaluation for us, because I didn't want to just beat on my judgment. So you should actually have a copy of the report from Wilson Engineers.
But that's his report. I'm looking for the town to, okay. I didn't see it. I'll tell you that right now. I didn't see.
So near the end of the report, they actually did evaluation, the other piece of equipment, and we're actually asking to put it into the capital budget is we actually have an issue with the grit unit.
Well, here's my request, and this is the town manager. I think every single time we have an economic opportunity, that there ought to be an economic calculation in the justification certified by the town, because that's an engineer's opinion. You may disagree with it. I think that it's the town's responsibility, in my view, to be good stewards of the money that we have and make good decisions. And those economic decisions need to be made with economic numbers, not with subjective comments or a little better, a little worse. We need numbers. So that's my speech for tonight. I'm gonna vote for this. But I just like to see us move to another level on both maintenance and analysis.
Vice Mayor.
My understanding of what this does is it removes at the front end of the wastewater plant unacceptably large, inappropriate items that are in the regular detritus. And that gets dumped.
Don't use words like that.
All right, I tried to clean it up. I don't want to use 4-letter words. So, and that gets dumped off so that it'll get kind of a big pile of sludge type stuff, gets carted away by somebody, while as the more fluid type stuff goes through. Does it then go past the big circular thing with the pie-shaped sections to it to filter it even further? Because I know that one has broken a couple of times. And the original parts, I think, come from the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think you're referring to the grit unit. So the headworks of the treatment plant, and that's what we consider the primary, the first or the primary treatment of the treatment plant. We have what's called the tertiary treatment plant. And the headworks is made up of the two components: the inlet screen, which removes larger material that can be in the waste stream that could damage downstream equipment, wet wipes and stuff like that can get caught. You'd be surprised what actually you can find at larger treatment plants that the headwork screens will end up in the collection system that you don't want downstream. And then downstream of that is the grit unit. The grit is actually taking out suspended solids like sands and other things, coffee grinds, which the downstream process can't treat. So that's actually being settled out by gravity. So they actually both reside in the headworks of the building. We actually are having some troubles with the grit unit. So the Wilson report that was attached to this actually was for both pieces of equipment. We asked them to actually evaluate both and give us a recommendation for moving forward. The grit unit is actually, what's the issue with the grit unit is actually the compactor. That material gets collected. It's pushed as a sludge up. We've actually replaced that sludge pump, but when it gets into the auger mechanism has failed to the point where it can't actually move the material up to the dumpster. So what actually happened is it compacted itself so badly that it actually broke the pump downstream. So we found out the root cause of the pump breaking the other year, which was about 18 months ago, the pump broke on the grit unit, was because the auger was broken. So it couldn't move the material. So it backed up and basically damaged the pump.
I would expect there are a lot of people that have a kind of I won't say a low opinion of wastewater plants, but I know they're an incredibly complex system. And I also know that there've been some failures in the past where the town has been handicapped because you can't get the parts, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. Kind of adding on to what Councilmember Morris said, I think that, as he would like, well, I won't put it the way he would put it. I'll put it the way I would put it, that there needs to be a comprehensive program of constant review of the individual parts, because if any one of those goes bad, it becomes a problem for the rest of the system. So, yeah, that's all I'd like to say on this. I think that this is certainly getting rid of the big pieces of bad stuff at the front end of the process is one of the more critical things that we can do.
So basically, this drum that you're talking about has been redesigned by the manufacturer that makes the one we have, and they've added more bearings and more and made a better product.
That's our understanding. The field technician who came out and saw the unit, he said we actually had an older model. He's never worked on this one. He doesn't, because he typically worked out east. So the technician came out, and then we've talked to one of our staff members, worked at a plant, Maricopa actually, that had a similar drum screen, but it had a different bearing support system, and it wasn't relying on two individual supports. It actually had multiple supports. So
yeah, these big things that go round and round break. Just watch Gold Rush on Discovery Channel. The trommels break all the time. There is public comment on this one. We have none. We're back to council for motion, please.
I'll make the motion. Motion to approve a job order contract with MGC Contractors to replace inlet screen at wastewater treatment plant for an amount up to $215,654. Second. I have a comment. I'm for this. 'cause
You have a comment?
Yeah, I truly believe that we need to treat the detritus in an effective, positive fashion from the get-go.
Well, I do too. You know,
I'm sure.
you know, that when the detritus, detritus is overflowing, it really hits the fan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is financial, please.
Councilmember Morris,
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Diefenderfer,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Bunch.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. I'd like to request a 5-minute recess right this minute. Some of us are a little bit older. Right, Paul?
Right.
It is 7:44, so 7:49, we'll be back here. All right, welcome back. We're at agenda item number 9, which is council discussion and possible approval of second reading of ordinance number 2021-08, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code Title 5, Public Works, Chapter 52, Water, Sections 52.001, definitions, 52.108, extensions and subdivisions, 52.202, buildings to have separate service connections, 52.204, application for new service connections generally, 52-404, activation of water service, 52-405, reactivation or transfer of water service, and 52-411, discontinuance of service on order of customer. Placed on the agenda by Mr. Sean.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight is the second reading of the ordinance 2021-08. The first reading happened at the last meeting. This is part of the process to get the town code amended to address the town council's policies or desire to actually change some things in regards to the 2017 water policy and put some of those requirements and some of the changes into town code. The biggest one being that previously in 2017, the water policy, there was a couple of amendments that were made to town code, but we'll put more of the gist of the document into town code. Before I keep going, let me just add that Michelle Van Quaithen, who helped draft the report, she's actually available via the Zoom call, so she can ask her any technical questions. But if you'd like, I could go through and maybe because it is a second reading to highlight the changes that are being suggested. The ordinance, it's actually, we put the document into a resolution because of the extensive changes. So at the last meeting, we council adopted the resolution, which made the document a public document. And then the ordinance is what we're approving, which refers back to that resolution in effect. And the resolution has the specific changes. So as the topic reads a lot, it's voluminous, but so 52001 definitions, we added a definition of what a manifold meter is. That being a meter that downstream on the customer side is then connected together. And the intent there is to prevent people from looking for two smaller meters to make up the same volumetric difference so they can pay lower capacity connection fees and look at paying us lesser volumetric fees. In the extension requirement 52108, we did some general cleanup where we took developer and said changed the language to owner and agents. And we also talked about what really is an extension of the system. The extension isn't just the 20 feet to the meter connection. It's actually the extension across the front of the property that allows the system to build more organically and be connected together. 52202 was buildings to have separate water connections. That was a little bit more of a cleanup. And then we added a section C, which actually does again prohibit the use of manifold meters, just reinforces the definition that we had defined earlier. 52204, applications for new service. That's the bulk of the information. So in 2017, when the water policy was adopted, it was most of the the guts of that was actually in the policy itself. So we reversed course and said it really should be in town code. It's actually something we heard from council. The preservation and of the town's water resources is critical to the town's survival moving forward. So this needs to be part of town code. It's not just a policy. So we set the volumetric limits for commercial and single family residential. The typical limit is half an acre foot per year. In multifamily, that's 1/3 of an acre foot. And we talk about some latitudes because as we've been utilizing that policy over the last several years, we've ran into a couple of issues where depending on the type of development, in some cases, commercial likes to actually have 2 meters. So they might not use as much water, or they might stay within our volumetric limits. But it's actually sometimes beneficial to let them have 2 meters, one for landscaping, one for interior use, because then we can charge sewer capacity on their interior use and remove the landscaping component from that. Same thing on multifamily, where if we have multifamily, by restricting them to 1 meter per parcel, that actually also constricted us to 1 sewer account per property. So by allowing multiple meters for multifamily, we can actually allow for separate sewer accounts on each building. Also goes back to some accountability issues. If people are, if you start master metering developments, then it's easier to not think about what is my overall water resource or my water footprint, and then we can start talking about conservation and better manage that. So again, the guts of everything that we've been talking about with council for the last several months has really put into this section. And that really is the biggest change that we've proposed. 52404 is the activation of water services. It's going back to one of the biggest things is that will serve letters it basically defines a will serve letter as a statement of intent. It's not a contractual obligation. It defines that the town, it's a service connection and service needs to be brought forward. It actually needs to have a contract unless it's outside these parameters. And it allows council some latitude to authorize the use of the town's water resources. But again, the biggest takeaway is will serve letters, which we've been honoring as almost a contractual obligation. Legally, they're not a contractual obligation. They're a letter of intent at the time that they were issued, that there was water resources, there was infrastructure available to serve that at the time. We've been honoring them as a 3-year commitment, which we're continuing to say if we issue a will serve letter, be for 3 years, but then it automatically expires, but it's not a contract. So if someone wants a contractual obligation, they need to come to council. We need to get a contract brought forward to you. And the last item on tonight's agenda is one of those contracts. And then we reinforce the section, again, 52404. Section C on subdivisions. And that's really, again, reinforcing the need for new subdivisions. And the town's definition of a subdivision is a parcel subdivided to create the 4th lot. So the 3 subdivisions to create a 4th lot. The typical standard is more, I think you subdivide up to 5 times to create the 6th lot. That's considered a subdivision. But they need to bring new water resources. That needs to be a physical, legally and physically available water supply that the town can have access to and put into the pipe so we can feed the services. So and there's a few other cleanups. 52404, the reactivation of transfer of service. That was a cleanup that we asked for. And again, going in relation to the needs for a subdivision to bring its own water resources. And 52411, discontinuance of services on order of customer. We added a section E. So that the town, we've been finding as we've been going through and doing auditing of the system and finding our meters and actually geolocating, we've been finding a lot of meters that have been out of service for a number of years. I don't think it's in the interest of the town to keep those active, and town policy requires that if someone wants and has an existing service, if they come to us, the way we interpret town code is that they actually have to pay the base fee on the water account is to pay for the maintenance, ongoing maintenance and operation of the system. You pay the volumetric fee for the delivery of the water specifically you're being used for. So if you haven't been paying a base fee, in effect, you haven't been paying for the maintenance of the system. So it's not fair to you just to come back and get connection. So the 2 options we give to people are you can ask for set it up as a new connection and pay capacity fees, or you can pay the back charges. And in some cases, we've seen people who have come to forward to us who haven't had a connection to the town system for over 14, 15 years. we can go back in the records and find that. And it's just not a fairness question. So what we've proposed to do is we go and discontinue those services. We notify the current property owner that we do have a meter there, that these are the situations that we've found. When's the last time it had service? What would be the fees associated with it? And physically remove that meter from the system. So it just prevents that confusion, because I think that does cause some confusion if someone's going to a property and they see a meter box, open it up, and there's a meter in there. And in fact, that meter has not been valid, and we would not want service to go through that meter right now, because we want to change that meter out. But this is a way for us to clean up. At this point, I think we found over 90 in the system. So we'd like to move forward with that and clean that out of the system. And it just clears some of our backlog. So again, tonight's action is to for the second hearing of the ordinance. So if council approves that tonight, then in 30 days, the ordinance becomes cauterized in town code, becomes effective. Following this is a second action tonight, and I can talk a little bit more about that, which is the actual adoption of the water policy itself as a resolution. And I'll talk about that as a separate action. But tonight is just the second hearing of the proposed town code ordinance revisions, town code changes.
Question from council? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on this one.
W. Pat Mahoney.
Hi, this is Pat Mahoney. My address is 5202 North Central in Phoenix, Arizona. I've owned property. I'm a real estate developer, investor, third generation Arizonan. We bought some property at 7th Street and Carefree Highway dating back 2005. Was very instrumental in petitioning the town in 2005-06 in that line to extend the sewer lines and maybe annexation from Cave Creek down to 7th Avenue past our town. And there was a little incident that took place called the Great Recession. It pretty much blew this thing out of the water. And so I, like most other real estate people, went and hid under a rock for about 3 or 4 years, figuring out how deep this thing was going to go. Came back about 2012, 2013, and started looking at land uses for that without the idea that sewer. This is a commercial property we always envisioned. It also was severely impacted by a major FEMA washway, that flood zone that went through the middle of the property. So I spent 2 years getting my FEMA and Clomar approved. I apologize, but I don't know if you can see this or if I can approach your, but this is the parcels that we have currently. And first thing we did is we had to construct a wash. It's a 50-foot wide concrete wash that goes around the perimeter of the property. We completed that, and that allowed us to develop the property. We also went, because we're not in the town, unfortunately, we had to deal with Maricopa County. And about 15 and 16, we ended up having getting the commercial zoning, actual commercial zoning. We went for a special use permit for this back 7 acres, which we got approved. And we have since built the drainage channel, which was a significant capital outlay. And we built on the back 7 acres. We did our self-storage and RV parking, and that was completed about mid-2020. And it's been a success. So we're very happy with it. We are now July of this past year, 21. We did sell these front parcels. We sold this piece to QT, which I'm sure everyone knows is a convenience operator. So we sold that. And while we were doing this, we came and took about half of this section, and we went back to the county to put maybe do a phase 3 of this RV parking, because we don't have water or don't have sewer. So there's very limited to what you can do from a commercial development. So I think at that time, Sean saw some of our postings one day, and he called me, and it was like, what? Hello? What? No, what? You know, I thought I had a sewer problem. I didn't realize I was getting a water problem to go along with it at that time. So since that time, we have, I went back, and I mean, we did in 2017, we have the town of Cave Creek signed off our water plan. and it was for all 17 acres. That's minus the 2.5 that we lost for our drainage channel. So this thing was signed off by the town engineer for a water plan, and we put a water basis design report from a civil engineer that substantiated that we were in the town. And since the time was that was approved in 2018 by the town engineer at that time by Cave Creek, we have built 6-inch fire line that does a complete loop around our system. We've already tapped in through our first self-storage deal. We have a water tap and we have a water meter, and it's been operational since June of 2020. So we just want to make sure that we've sold a piece of property to QT that they've already had plans, and they're already, imminently looking to break ground on their property, that we're kind of, it's like, we fully understand that there's a water problem in the state. I mean, all you do is have to read a problem. I mean, we're not trying to say that we're not, subject to, we want to try to figure cooperatively how to work together to mitigate the waste of water. And I think it's going to be not just an Arizona problem, it's going to be at least the southwestern United States, if not the entire country's problem, that there's there's a lack of water, certainly here in the desert. So one of the plans we have to do on an interim use is to do more self-storage, which doesn't even require any additional water demand. And QT is in discussions with you, and he'll get up and speak right after me about what their plans are and what they're doing. But I just wanted to make sure that I want to, toss my hat in the ring if there's any chance for any potential, quid pro quo of annexation in lieu of sales tax, because there's a lot of commercial pent-up demand in that area that would maybe generate sales tax to the town in exchange for, maybe being able to buy additional water credits, or, working at it from a town level versus an individual basis level. I think that's very inefficient. I've dealt with a lot of the native communities, and typically their water rights are superior to most towns. So they have abundance of water, and that is for sale, but they really don't want to come to a private developer and say, hey, I want 5 water credits. I mean, they're not geared for that. They want a deal on a bigger scale than that. And maybe there can be kind of like I said, a win-win situation that could come of this, that we could orchestrate the private landowners along Carefree Highway. And I know there's a state land that's kind of in between us, but you've got a plant that was built, and that's what started in 2005, about 44th Street and Carefree Highway. And maybe we could pay through our bond against the properties, real estate tax bond, that would pay for all the improvements to bring the infrastructure down along Carefree Highway. So, I mean, this got pretty close in 2005. I still think it's a great, for all the property owners and for the town, if there could be more governance where you don't own the water company, but you don't have control over the development of it. It's a pretty big disconnect when the county is in charge of development and you guys have the water. So I'm just trying to say that potentially, with the history I have with all the neighbors in the area and being, vocal and a big mouth, I guess, I pretty much have kind of been the spokesman for them. And I can certainly, people are still there. They're kind of, they're very restricted on what they can do with their land. So this would be a solution for them as well. So I see it as a win-win possibility. So that's what I had to say.
Point of order here. Is Mr. Mahoney addressing, was I asleep at the wheel here? Mr. Mahoney, I believe, is agenda item number 11, and we're still on 9, and then have to go to 10.
No, that's not. No, we're already existing. I think 11 is a new one. It's coming in. That's not me.
That's not you.
So we're talking about the change of the water policy that I want to make sure is not negatively impacting what I've already put in place.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mr. Silva is correct. You're a little premature. You're on number 10. We're still on number 9.
Well, I got called. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
No, I know you raised your questions.
So I think 9 and 10 look to me like they're kind of, so I apologize if I'm one too early.
But we've, Mr. Mayor, we've just detected the document that was agendized does not have the policy in it. It has the memo, but it does not attach the policy. You've seen the policy before. But we haven't yet, the public has not seen that in the agenda that's currently on the website. Is that correct, Teresa? I don't think the policy is in there.
I don't have the website up, but we can pull the policy up right now.
Okay,
That's for item 10, though.
I know, I'm just, yeah, that's for your item.
We pulled it up on the website, so.
Oh, then we're good. Okay, never mind. Okay, but we ought to pull it up here, but let's finish 9. Your comments are all on 10.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
One early. Okay. well,
Yeah, I think looking at it, I went to the website and downloaded the document. So for action item 10, we actually do talk about the policy itself, but the resolution, which includes the policy language, was not attached. So it sounds like talking to the our legal, we actually will have to table that action. So I guess we can discuss it, but we can't.
Well, let's finish 9.
Okay.
Let's do 9.
Okay.
Do you have a question, Captain?
Yeah, I have a question. Is your property contiguous to Cape Creek?
No.
No, that's, I think the boundaries are somewhere around, what, 32nd Street? I think somewhere in there. 24th Street kind of undulates, I think.
Yeah, we were 32nd, I think, at that point, Carefree Highway.
So, but we, in the 2005, we had everyone from, we didn't have the state land department, which is in that chunk right there, just west of 32nd Street. But it picks up private ownership around 24th Street, 16th Street, somewhere 24th Street, all the way to 7th Avenue. We had a whole consensus, and we had a group pass that we were willing to place a bonds against our land in the form of additional real estate tax burden to pay for a sewer line. And what the town was getting was affluent and the ability, we were coming in with a zoning. So it was like, we were going to bring more, sales tax potentially, because it was all commercial. And we were going to get the zoning and have the ability to have sewer accessibility. So that was the trade-off.
So are we back to council now? All right, on number 9. Do we have a motion? Yes, please.
Okay, here's the motion. Motion to approve second reading of ordinance 0/2021-08, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, amending the town of Cave Creek Town Code, Title 5, Public Works, Chapter 52, Water, Sections 52.001, definitions 52.108, the extensions and subdivisions 52.202, buildings to have separate service connections 52.204, applications for new service connections generally 52-402, activation of water service 52-405, reactivation or transfer of water service, and 52-411, discontinuance of service on order of customer.
Second.
All those in favor, or comments?
We've seen this before. This is essentially the third time that we've had a chance to review this. I'm perfectly satisfied with the second reading of this.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes clearly have it. A motion carries 6-0. Now tell me about agenda item number 10, Mr. Sims.
Mayor and Michelle is on the phone. Agenda item number 10 is to adopt the water policy. The water policy would be applicable to areas outside the town, but not the customers served in the Carefree area, because that's the subject of the settlement with Carefree. You've already seen the policy during a prior reading. It was unintentionally omitted from the packet that was published on the web and in your packet tonight. There is nothing in the open meeting law that requires you to make documents available to the public in advance. However, you've always done that. And so what I'm telling you is if you wish to proceed, you could adopt it. But the constituents did not have the benefit of seeing it on the agenda, and nor did you in your package tonight. So you have two options. You could proceed. It would be consistent with the open meeting law, but not consistent with your past practices, or you can table. So but in making your decision, and Michelle should weigh in here, the operative word is we are changing your views concerning providing service external to your jurisdiction. And if you look to the memo, which does give you a good explanation, it's on page 150 of 181, where the last three paragraphs describe at length the greater discretion that this policy gives you regarding agreeing to water service outside your jurisdiction. And Michelle has done a great job, and maybe she could give some comments here. And then let's listen, have that discussion. Then you as a council can decide, do you wish to table or you do wish to proceed? Michelle.
Good evening. Yes, this policy is still in the form that you saw it, although I do have to say, we did simplify it a little bit because some of the concepts were moved into the ordinance, so it's very short. But the main part of the policy is that in areas outside of the town boundaries and not including the Carefree area, which is done by a separate agreement, you will no longer provide service automatically. And there will be a need to look at existing agreements and statutes to see if service must be provided. But if the town is not bound to provide service, then it will not. So it's basically stopping the extension of new services that are not already required by statute or contract. And the resolution that went with it, I think I would let Sean probably explain that, but we've already experienced some questions about transition cases where we have certain people coming in every day that have been in good faith, believing they were going to get hooked up. And so, oh, there it is. And so we were proposing in the resolution to allow a tiny bit of transition period for the policy to accommodate those people that are quite far along in the process.
And with that, Michelle's lead in, yeah, the thought was that there would be a transition period because we actually have some projects moving ahead. One, the next action item was actually a contract that they reached out to us. We've been in discussion for a couple of months now and came to an agreement of what they can do for a line extension agreement in order to actually also get water service. And it was, I think, a significant improvement to the system. We've had a couple other projects. We've talked to Mr. Mahoney's property and the QT parcel. We've actually been in talks with them about trying to get them up with an actual water service agreement because their projects are so far along in process. It would seem harsh to say we're not just putting a moratorium on new water services. We're trying to limit new water services, but there is a transition period. So the resolution that was not included in the package, and it's sort of defined in the memo, was to give staff some discretion that if a project had moved far enough along, they had made a submittal to Maricopa County Building Services Department or Development Services Department, then at that point, we could still, as staff, actually continue to say that during this transition period, we can grant that new service. Moving forward, it would require a council action. So if they wanted to have security beyond that transition period, it was going to require an action by council, which is again a council item number 11 is a line extension water service agreement before council outside of our municipal limits. So.
Councilman McGuire.
You've indicated that in past, this would not have been done this way, past practice. If we don't follow past practice, does that leave us liable?
No, there's nothing, you're not liable under the open meeting law. And I don't think your code, I've seen no code that requires governments to post a document. Almost every government does. And so I believe you could proceed, but your constituents haven't had the benefit of seeing what's on the screen tonight. So that's the question. You could table, and then we could bring it back to you and then have a discussion. But the key point is acknowledging by policy, you're going to adopt this transition period to address the issues that Michelle and Sean have identified. For those developers who already have projects in the door, and the way this works, there would be a window through February 28th, 2022. After that, then they would have to bring new water. So your call, it's not a legal call. If you wish to proceed, you can. You've not done that in the past.
I've not had a single person ask me about the water policy in my 10 years working with water. May I ask a question about
Go ahead.
the transition? I'm skeptical of discretion. I like rules because then there's no interpretation, there's no pressure, there's no favors for one person and not another. Why February 28th? And how many projects and how much water?
And that was going to be my question. Was there a volumetric thing tiled?
Yeah, I can't actually give an answer to that, and that's part of the problem is that we're not the zoning agency for Desert Hills. Projects are moving forward. They move forward with Maricopa County. As Mr. Mahoney indicated, I found out about the discussion with the QT project because actually I always got a notification letter for a specific area plan or special use application. So we are working with Maricopa County to get better relationships so we understand the projects, but a lot of cases we are not. We're at the end of and they come to us with an old will serve or something and say, I get service. When it's like, well, wait a minute, you should have talked to me before this. The thought with the February 28th period is if after the second reading of the ordinance, the town code will be amended. I think the amendments would be the second or third week of January that those amendments would become in effect. It gives us a little bit of a grace period in case projects do come forward. I don't anticipate that many. I know of a few that we're trying to work with some contracts on, but it's just, we've been trying to be proactive about notifying people. I just as staff, we didn't feel it was proper to say, okay, it's moratorium as of tonight, no more new projects. If someone's already gone through and they didn't hear about this and they've already gone to building services in Maricopa County, have already gone through their civil improvements, their architectural improvements, and they got a building permit in hand, and I'm saying, sorry, you can't move forward with your project.
So is that the criteria? They've got a building permit in hand?
They've made the application because what we're hearing is it's running 2 to 3 months when they make that submittal to building services with Maricopa County. So we figured 60 days is effective end of February. So that's why we chose that date. We could extend that out. We didn't want to keep extending it out, but we're hearing they're running about 2 to 3 months with their reviews on projects right now for building service to issue a building permit. And we thought if someone is already in that process, has already started before tonight, then that would be something that we could say, okay, as long as you show me that you've made that application, show me the receipt that you've actually submitted that document. I can maybe check with the planning staff or the building safety class. If that is in case, then it gives us that latitude. And that's what we were asking for as part of the resolution for adopting the water policy for that transition period.
Well, what I think about these things, there's one golden rule. I do things that are in the best interest of the constituents, and it's in our best interest to get this thing kicked down the road as quickly as we can. My own view, and I respect what you're saying. I agree that it's better, but I wouldn't think there's 5 people in town who've read it. And given the fact that I think we're going to have everybody trying to get it under the gun, and we're out of water.
Yeah.
So I think the sooner we get this adopted, the better off we are.
Mr. Mayor, this has been on the agenda before. Sorry, the public has seen this. This was on the agenda the last time we brought in the first read, the policy. Sean included the policy plus the 2017 policy. Yeah. So it's not been hidden from your constituents. It was just unintentionally omitted tonight. But I would like to clarify one thing. Sean has used the term moratorium twice. We're not imposing a moratorium at all. What we're doing is we're providing water if they have a statutory or contractual right. And so when you say moratorium, it triggers a different statute.
All right.
Motion to approve resolution R 2021-25, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cave Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, adopting the revised town of Cave Creek water resource policy.
Mayor, we do have members of the public on this item? I'm sorry.
Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we kind of listened to it already, didn't we?
I think given where we're sitting, I think now that it's on the screen, so they can't say they didn't, this is the resolution, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, but shit, no, he said there's call of the public. Yeah.
I don't want them to be able to say they did this
Okay.
not knowing. We have on the screen what you are now voting, about to vote upon.
Correct. And we have a second.
Okay, should I back up and let them come up and do the public comment? Go ahead.
Pat Mahoney, if you want to, yep, okay. Daniel Chambers,
Mayor and Town Council, thank you for letting me talk tonight. My name is Daniel Chambers. I work for Quick Trip Corporation. As Mr. Mahoney alluded to, we bought some property from him, and it is in the Desert Hills Water Service area. It is an unincorporated Maricopa County. And we've been working with staff, Mr. Sean, to come to an agreement with the water services. I just wanted to let you know about our project. If you guys had any questions. That was more it, just kind of, let you guys know that we're looking to build, and just thank you for consideration for hopefully coming to an agreement on the water for our project.
That was QT.
Yes, sir.
And I don't recall ever seeing a car wash at a QT.
There is no car wash at a QT. So we've been working with city staff on ways to reduce the water usage and the demand. What we can do, we've tried to get creative and looking at the different systems we do. One of the things that we pride ourselves in is our building. We do a lot for water efficiency and just water usage. Some of the constraints that we're up against is Maricopa County is requiring some extensive landscaping requirements. So we've been walking back with Maricopa County to try to get those reduced, and what we can do to try to do some more xeriscape and reduce the impact.
Yeah.
So we're kind of caught in a rock and a hard place here between what Maricopa County is requiring, the town's policies, and the reality of the water restrictions and the water shortage. So working with staff, whatever we can do to try to help reduce and use less of it. But we're looking forward to this project, and hopefully that you guys will agree and we can move forward and have a new Quick Trip for you guys to help service your.
And this works for you?
It's going to be very tough. I haven't read it all and seen it, so I'm looking forward to pulling it down. Is that on the website right now?
well, it's not on the website at the moment, but we'll get it on there.
Okay, so when I get a chance to, I would like to review it. Yes.
Yeah, and keep hammering Maricopa County with xeriscape. They were pushing that 35 years ago. I got their brochure. And
Yeah, we've been just the amount of landscape that they're requiring is pretty extensive. So we've definitely gone back, and we had to go through a special use permit process with them. We started our building permit process. Just we're trying to do what we can, but they're requiring something that we don't have. You guys don't have the water to provide us to be able to irrigate it. So
is that the parcel where they typically sell fireworks?
Yeah.
And Christmas trees?
Yes, sir.
Don't let them do that anymore.
They're not.
Fireworks.
No more.
Okay.
I can certainly do that.
No, we're actually there. All right. Thank you, sir. But unless you got something else.
No, thank you for your consideration and your time.
Okay. We're gonna break and motion to move into E-session.
So moved.
All right. Here, and my recollection is that we have a motion and a second on already.
And the minutes will reflect that due to administrative error, the actual policy and resolution was not in the package on the web. Policy was on the web at the last council meeting. The policy has been on the screen tonight for those persons who are witnessing the meeting via screen. And we've now printed both the resolution and the policy so that people in the room have it as well. So tonight, your action could be, as permitted by the open meeting law, this agenda item was appropriate. The open meeting law doesn't require 24 hours in advance, although literally 4 weeks ago, it was on the agenda. You can act tonight to approve the policy and the resolution.
All right, and we do have a motion and a second was already made.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Who was the second on that?
I believe I was.
Hmm?
Wasn't
I think Bob was. Bob's claiming. Or Councilman Morris, excuse me. Council. Well, tonight he can be councilman. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes clearly have it. Motion passes 6-0, which leaves us back to agenda item number 11, which is council discussion approval of main extension and water service agreement with the LDS Family Trust to provide water service in Desert Hills.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the action tonight was to enter into this contractual agreement. This is a project that we became aware of in Desert Hills. And we had discussions with the ownership group. They own a property south of Carefree Highway between 12th Street and 14th Street. It happens that they do not actually even have an existing frontage line for them from the Desert Hills water system. So what we've discussed with them, they are looking at doing a storage unit. They're actually proposing to do not even have on-site residential usage, which usually do have an on-site caretaker. So they're looking at a very low water use project. And they're proposing as part of this line extension agreement or as part of the contract is that they would actually extend and loop the system. So the town's requirements are to extend the water system and loop where practical. In their case, we can't just continue to extend line extensions in Desert Hills. That's one of our major problems is that we have allowed over a number of years in prior ownership group and even some of the towns, we've allowed single line extensions and not looping of the system. That's really causing issues. So they've agreed to do an extension on Carefree Highway from 12th Street to 14th and actually cross underneath Carefree Highway to extend up and connect up to an existing line that we have just north of Carefree Highway and 14th Street. You can see as an exhibit A, an area map in your exhibit. There is still a little gap to the south, but in fact, the link to the north is more important from a criticality because that actually ties us back into our infrastructure, which is up north, especially our Cloud Road connection to Desert Hills. The town can look to complete the other gap that you'll still see on the exhibit on 14th Street to the south. But this would greatly improve the area. We have about 150 customers currently south of Carefree Highway. Between 12th and 14th Streets that are currently only being fed by one single 6-inch line. So this would greatly improve the reliability. And again, as part of our capital program, the town has other projects that we're looking to do and other funding to complete gaps. So maybe the other gap we can complete, but we can look at criticality. But this would be a substantial improvement to the Desert Hills water system. That's why staff is recommending that council authorize this line extension agreement and the water service agreement. So they're looking for 1 3/4-inch water meters part of their project. And also proposing to complete this water system loop for us in our system.
What, Sean, why do they want, why is it going into a tank? What's the tank for?
Was that the tank?
Well, okay, well, it's not a new water storage unit, it's a new storage unit.
Storage unit, yeah,
Okay,
not a water
okay,
storage
yeah,
unit.
yeah,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So as part of the backup, you'll see, yeah, they'll loop the system and they'll have a single tap off of that. They'll have some they have some with Daisy Mountain, they have some fire services. We truly don't reliably provide fire services out there. We make sure that's clearly defined. But this would allow them to move forward with their project with Maricopa County and with Daisy Mountain Fire, where the fire district marshals out in that area. And really just looking for the one, they'll have a couple of hydrants out on Carefree Highway, but more so it's the looping of the system, which the town's getting the benefit out of. We really need to loop the system.
That's the system benefit.
Yeah, the overall
Yeah.
system benefits greatly exceeds the one water meter they're asking for.
Yeah.
Benefit.
Questions, council? All right, there is public comment on this one as well.
No speakers.
No speakers. Back to council for motion, please. All right, comment, Tom? Council Member McGuire? Council person. Yeah.
That's my comment.
Yeah, okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I want to take this opportunity to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you on the 3rd of January.
See you next year.
See you next year. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.